$22,000. That is what one round of IVF costs a family paying out of pocket. And for thousands of veterans, the VA covers it, not a discount. The treatment itself, and here is the part that keeps me up at night. There is a single eligibility rule that decides whether the VA pays or whether you pay, and most families who qualify have never even heard it spoken out loud.
Erica here. One full IVF cycle runs about $19,000 to $30,000 depending on medication and add-ons. The size of that number is the whole reason this benefit matters. It is a down payment on a house spent trying to start a family.
Today we go deeper than the rate tables and the rating math. We are talking about the benefit veterans almost never ask about because nobody told them the door was even open. Fertility care, and specifically the IVF the VA actually pays for.
Isabella here. What the VA covers is not a coupon. It is the evaluation, the treatment, the fertility medications, and even the long-term storage of eggs and sperm. The Women's Health Benefits page lays it out in plain language.
Lewis here, and let me name the failure honestly because it is the saddest one I know in this whole system. Most veteran families who are eligible never file for it. They assume the answer is no, so they never ask the question.
The lifetime structure is generous in a way people do not expect. The benefit covers up to 6 attempts to create embryos, across up to 3 completed transfer cycles. 3 real shots at a pregnancy funded by the VA for those who qualify.
And to make this concrete, look at the agency we are talking about. This is not a charity or a clinic. This is a federal benefit.
That seal belongs to the Department of Veterans Affairs, the same agency that signs off on your rating and your health care. The IVF benefit lives inside that system, and that is exactly why so few families think to look for it there. Now, before Isabella walks us through who actually qualifies, here is a question one of you left under our last benefits video, and it frames this entire episode. Isabella, read it for us.
Yes, and it is the one I hear most. A viewer wrote, "Is fertility treatment really a VA benefit, or just for active duty? Everyone in my unit thinks it ended at separation."
It is a real VA benefit, and it does not end at separation. Coming up, the one rule that decides if the VA pays, the quiet 2024 change that reopened the door, the real dollars on the table, and the single most common mistake that costs families this benefit entirely. Let us start with that rule.
So let me tell you about a veteran I will call Marcus, an Army combat engineer who came home with a serious pelvic injury from a blast. Years later, when he and his wife tried to start a family, they learned the injury had left him unable to conceive without help. That is the exact situation this benefit was built for.
And yet you said he almost did not qualify. Why would a man with a service injury and real infertility almost get turned away?
Because of the single most important rule in this entire video. It is not enough to be a veteran. It is not enough to be infertile. The two have to be connected on paper.
Service connection must cause the infertility. That is the rule, and I want to be precise about it. The VA requires a formally rated service-connected disability or the treatment of one that is causally related to your inability to conceive. The Women's Health page states it in almost those exact words.
Let me unpack the jargon, because that phrase causally related is doing all the heavy lifting. It means the same condition the VA already rated you for, or the medical treatment for it, is what made conceiving impossible.
Right, and this is the rung where today's episode lives. Rung 8 on the claim ladder is extend. You already have a rating, and rung 8 is where you reach the benefits beyond the monthly check, the healthcare, the family-building programs that ride on top of that service connection.
This is where I follow the money because the wrong assumption costs people. A lot of viewers hear the VA covers IVF and think any veteran walks in and gets it free. That is not the deal, and believing it sends you to a clinic expecting a bill the VA was never going to pay.
Here is the part that surprises people in the good direction. Your marital status does not affect eligibility at all. Married, unmarried, single, none of it changes whether you qualify. The VA put that in writing.
And the lawful spouse of an eligible veteran is covered too. So if you qualify, the treatment can involve your spouse, and the spouse's fertility care falls under the same benefit. That detail matters more than it sounds, and we will come back to it.
Let me run you through the eligibility path, the way the VA actually checks it, so you can see whether you land inside the gate or outside it. Picture 2 questions, asked in order.
The first gate is the rating. Do you have a service-connected disability the VA has formally adjudicated? If no, you are outside the IVF benefit, full stop.
And if yes,
Then you move to the second gate, and the second gate is the link. Does that disability or its treatment cause the infertility? Yes on both, and you are eligible. A no on either one, and you are not.
2 gates, a rating, and a causal link. Clear both, and the door opens. That is the rule worth sending to any veteran couple you know who is quietly struggling with this. Quick, honest ask while we are here. If this has been worth your time so far, hit like, then subscribe and ring the bell. I know everyone asks, but this one is free, and it is how a small channel like this actually grows.
I want to reframe this next part, because we already ran this experiment the hard way. For years, this benefit had walls around it that had nothing to do with your service or your injury. They had to do with who you were married to and what your body could produce.
And those walls were brutal in practice. Walk us through who they shut out.
Under the old rule, you had to be legally married, and you had to be able to produce your own eggs and sperm. So a single veteran, infertile from a service injury, was simply told no. A veteran in a same-sex marriage told no.
And that last group is the cruelest one of all.
It is a veteran whose injury destroyed their ability to produce gametes at all. The very people who needed it most told no.
March 11th, 2024. That is the date the VA tore those walls down. The agency announced it would expand IVF to veterans who had been locked out under the old marital and gamete rules.
unmarried and single veterans, now included. This is the change Marcus's single battle buddy needed, the one who assumed for a decade that a wedding ring was a requirement for his own benefit. It never should have been, and now it is not.
Veterans in same-sex marriages, now included. The VA put it plainly in its own press release. The marital status barrier that kept whole families out is gone.
And here is the one that changes the most lives. Donated sperm, eggs, or embryos are now allowed in VA fertility treatment. For a veteran whose service injury means they cannot produce their own gametes at all, donor material is the only path to a biological family, and the door is finally open.
I have to put the warning on the table because the old rule is still living in people's heads. The barrier that said unmarried and donor gamete veterans were out, that rule is dead. But veterans who heard it years ago are still self-rejecting. They never recheck.
One precise caution, so we do not oversell it. The expansion widened who can walk through the door. It did not remove the door itself. The service-connected infertility rule still applies. You still need that rating and that causal link we covered. What changed is everything around it, not the core requirement itself.
That is the honest synthesis. The 2024 expansion did not make IVF universal for veterans. It made it fair. The same core rule, applied without punishing you for being single, or for who you love, or for an injury that took your ability to produce gametes.
And there is a hand up over here, with the question this whole change raises. Erica has been quietly waiting on it.
Yes, and it is the practical one. If the rules changed in 2024 and I was told no before that, do I have to file something brand new or do I just ask again?
You ask again. If you have the service connection and the link, you re-engage VA healthcare and request a fertility evaluation under the current rules. The old denial does not bind you. The policy that produced it is gone.
Now we follow the money because a benefit you cannot price is a benefit you cannot value. Stick with me here, because coming up I will also read you the one line on this receipt the VA does not pay. Let us put real dollars on what the VA is actually covering, line by line.
Let me run you through one covered cycle with the published national price ranges so the number is grounded and not a guess. Start with the core procedure itself. The base IVF procedure, the egg retrieval, the lab work, the transfer, runs roughly $12,000 to $15,000 on the open market. That is the single biggest line, and for an eligible veteran, the VA carries it.
Then come the medications, and these are the line that ambushes families. The injectable fertility drugs alone run roughly $3,000 to $7,000 per cycle. People budget for the procedure and forget the pharmacy bill that rides alongside it.
Add the procedure and the medications together, and one covered cycle is worth somewhere around $18,000 to $22,000 that the eligible veteran does not pay. That is the cold open number, and now you can see exactly where it comes from.
And remember the lifetime structure from earlier. Up to 3 completed transfer cycles. Stack that value across 3 real attempts and you are no longer talking about one car payment. You are talking about a benefit that can reach well into 5 figures, even past $50,000 of covered value for a family that needs all 3.
Now here is where I stop the celebration and read the fine print, because I always do. There is one line on this receipt the VA does not pay, and you need to know it before you walk into a clinic.
The cost of obtaining donor eggs, sperm, or embryos is not covered. The VA expanded the rules in 2024 to allow donor material in treatment, but allowing it and paying for the donor material are 2 different things. The VA states plainly that it does not cover the cost of acquiring those donor gametes.
So the honest picture is this: the treatment, the procedure, the medications, those are covered for the eligible veteran. The donor material you might need to buy separately is on you. Budget for that one line, and the rest of this benefit is genuinely life-changing money. Caroline again, because I see a hand up, and it is the one everybody is thinking. Isabella, you have been holding a question. Go ahead.
Yes, and it is the dollars and cents one. If the VA covers the cycle, do I get billed a copay for it like a regular specialist visit? Or is the IVF itself truly paid?
The IVF treatment for an eligible veteran is provided as a covered VA fertility benefit, not an out-of-pocket bill for the procedure itself. Any general VA healthcare copay rules depend on your priority group, which is its own topic, but the IVF benefit is not a $22,000 invoice waiting for you. That is the entire point of it.
We have covered what the benefit is, who qualifies, and what it is worth. But knowing a benefit exists and knowing how to actually start it are 2 different things, and this is exactly where families stall out.
It is a fair place to stall. The VA does not exactly hand you a roadmap. So rather than guess at the steps, I think we should bring in someone who knows this process cold. I agree. Let me get them on the line. We reached out to someone who has walked many veteran families through VA fertility care from the very first phone call, and they have agreed to join us. Connecting now.
Hi Caroline, happy to be here. This is a part of the system people genuinely struggle to navigate, so I'm glad you are spending a whole episode on it. Ask me anything.
Let us start at the very beginning. A veteran is watching this. They think they might qualify. It is tonight. They want to take one real action. What is step 1?
Step 1 is making sure you are enrolled in VA healthcare. The fertility benefit lives inside VA healthcare, so enrollment is the front door. If you are already getting care at the VA, you are through that door already. If you are not, that enrollment is the first move, and it is straightforward.
So they are enrolled. They have the rating. They believe the infertility is connected to it. What do they literally say to whom?
Step 2 is the easiest sentence you will ever say. You tell your VA provider or the women's health clinic that you want a fertility evaluation. That single request opens the file. You do not need to arrive with a diagnosis or a binder. You just have to ask for the evaluation, and the system takes it from there.
That is a relief to hear. So you ask, And then what catches you on the other side?
Step 3 is the part most people do not know exists. Once that evaluation is in motion, you are connected with a fertility care coordinator. That coordinator is your guide through the whole maze, the referrals, the timelines, the paperwork. You are not navigating this alone.
For a veteran who does not have a provider yet, or who wants to start before their next appointment, is there a single phone number that gets them moving?
There is the Women Veterans Call Centre 855-829-6636. Despite the name, it is a front door to fertility services, and they will point any eligible veteran toward the right clinic and the right coordinator. I tell people to save that number before they do anything else.
Let me ask the question I have watched stop more veterans than any paperwork ever did. What is the single most common mistake you see, the one that costs people this benefit?
Self-rejection by a mile. People decide on their own that they will not qualify, so they never ask, and a benefit they were entitled to expires in silence. So my one rule is simple. Do not make the eligibility decision yourself. Ask and let the VA make the call.
Do not make the eligibility decision yourself. That might be the most valuable sentence in this whole episode.
The worst case is a no you already assumed. The best case is a family. Thank you for having me make that point.
Thank you for joining us and for laying out the path so clearly.
My pleasure. Tell the families in your life that is how this benefit stops being a secret.
I never let a benefit episode end on only the good news because that is how people get blindsided. Let me read you the limits straight so you walk in with clear eyes.
And these limits are not loopholes or fine print traps. They are written boundaries, and knowing them is what separates a family that plans well from one that gets a painful surprise.
Start with the hardest one then.
Surrogacy is not covered. The VA is not authorized to pay for surrogacy for any veteran, full stop. That is a statutory limit, and it matters most for the very veterans whose injuries make surrogacy their only path. We are not going to pretend that gap is not there.
The cost of obtaining donor eggs, sperm, or embryos is not covered, which we walked through with the receipt. The VA allows donor material in your treatment, but acquiring it is your expense. Plan for that line specifically.
And a partner who is not your lawful spouse is not covered. By law, the VA can extend fertility care to the eligible veteran and to a lawful spouse. An unmarried partner, however committed, falls outside what the VA can pay for. That is a hard line worth knowing before you build a plan around it.
Now hold all three of those limits next to what is actually covered because the balance still lands firmly on the veteran's side.
Covered is the IVF treatment itself for the eligible veteran. The evaluation, the procedure, the medications, the storage, across up to 3 transfer cycles. That is tens of thousands of dollars of care, and the gaps, real as they are, do not erase it. So here is the professor's verdict, and I will be direct, because this is not a close call. If you are a service-connected veteran and you suspect that condition is why you cannot conceive, you should ask the VA for a fertility evaluation. Full stop.
I will second that as plainly as I can. The surrogacy gap, the donor cost gap, the spouse limit, those are reasons to plan carefully. They are not reasons to skip the question. The only guaranteed way to lose this benefit is to assume you do not qualify and never ask.
Remember Marcus, the engineer from the start. He nearly talked himself out of asking, certain the VA would say no. He asked anyway. Today there is a crib in his house, and that is the whole reason this episode exists.
Ask the VA, never self-reject. Let the people whose job it is to know make the call, not your own worst assumption. That is the takeaway, and it could be the difference between a maybe and a family. Let us bring it home. The VA covers in vitro fertilization worth roughly $18,000 to $22,000 a cycle for veterans whose service-connected condition causes their infertility, and the 2024 expansion opened that door to single and same-sex married veterans too.
So here is what you do tonight. If you have that service connection and you think it is why you cannot conceive, you make one phone call, 829-6636 and ask for a fertility evaluation. That single sentence protects a benefit worth more than your car.
Next time we stay on rung 8 for the benefit nobody sees coming. There is a VA program that pays a family member to care for you at home, and most veterans never learn it exists until the day it is too late to use.
If this reached even one family who thought the door was closed, help us reach the next one. Like this video and subscribe to build this VA benefit series with us.
And here is the question we leave you with. Who is the one veteran in your life who needs to hear that this benefit is real and still open? Tell us in the comments and then go tell them.
Read what you sign and make them put it in writing. Take care.
Caroline, that was genuinely useful content delivered genuinely well. 9 out of 10. This is Professor Erica. Thanks for watching and signing off.